November 24th, 1971. A man wearing a dark business suit walks calmly through an airport in Portland, Oregon. He buys a one-way ticket. Nothing unusual. No security alarms, no suspicious behavior. No one notices him. A few hours later, that same man would hijack a commercial airliner, demand $200,000 in cash, parachute into the freezing darkness over the Pacific Northwest, and disappear forever. No body, no confirmed identity, no arrest, no answers. More than 50 years later, the mystery remains unsolved. How does someone commit one of the most daring crimes in American history and simply vanish? And what if the truth has been hiding in plain sight all along? This is the story of D.B. Cooper. And this is LastKnown. But before we get to the jump itself, we need to understand the man who planned the perfect disappearance. The D.B. Cooper case is one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in American history. For decades, investigators, journalists, amateur detectives, and even former FBI agents have tried to answer a single question. Who was D.B. Cooper? The case inspired movies, books, documentaries, and countless theories. Yet despite thousands of leads and years of investigation, no one has ever been able to prove who he really was. Tonight, we're following the evidence, the known facts, the strange clues, and the theories that still divide investigators to this day. Because the deeper you look into this mystery, the stranger it becomes. So who exactly was the man who stepped onto Northwest Orient Flight 305? On Thanksgiving Eve, November 24th, 1971, a middle-aged man approached the ticket counter at Portland International Airport. He identified himself as Dan Cooper. The name would later be incorrectly reported by the media as D.B. Cooper, and that mistake would become legendary. Witnesses described Cooper as calm, polite, professional. He appeared to be in his mid-40s, around 6 feet tall, wearing a black tie, white shirt, dark suit, and carrying a briefcase. Nothing about him seemed threatening. He boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 bound for Seattle. The aircraft was a Boeing 727 carrying 36 passengers. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. At first, she assumed it was a phone number from a businessman trying to flirt. She placed it in her purse without reading it. Then Cooper leaned toward her. "You'd better look at that note." She unfolded it. The message was chilling. "I have a bomb." When she sat beside him, Cooper opened his briefcase. Inside appeared to be 8 red cylinders attached to wires. Whether it was real or fake remains unknown. But in that moment, she believed him. And so did everyone else. Cooper's demands were surprisingly simple. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. If his demands were met, nobody would be harmed. The FBI later noted something unusual. Unlike many hijackers, Cooper remained calm throughout the ordeal. No panic, no shouting, no emotional outbursts. Almost as if he had rehearsed every detail. But what happened next suggested he may have known far more than anyone realized.
As the aircraft approached Seattle, authorities scrambled to meet Cooper's demands. The passengers had no idea what was happening. Meanwhile, law enforcement gathered ransom money, a total of 10,000 $20 bills. Every bill was carefully photographed, a decision that would become critically important years later. After landing in Seattle, the passengers were released. The money was delivered. The parachutes arrived. Now, only Cooper, the flight crew, and the ransom remained on board. And then he made a strange request. He ordered the pilots to fly toward Mexico City at a low altitude, at a relatively slow speed, with the landing gear partially deployed. Experts later noted that these instructions demonstrated an unusual understanding of aircraft operations. Was Cooper a military parachutist, an airline employee, a pilot, or something else entirely? The plane took off once again. The night was cold. Rain hammered the aircraft. Winds reached dangerous levels. Visibility was nearly non-existent. Around 8 p.m., somewhere over Washington state, Cooper moved toward the rear staircase of the Boeing 727. The crew never saw him again. A warning light indicated the stairway had been lowered. Then the aircraft suddenly lurched upward. Investigators later concluded that this was likely the moment Cooper jumped into darkness, into freezing rain, into history. When the plane landed hours later, Cooper was gone. Only a black tie remained behind, and the mystery had just begun. Because the biggest question wasn't whether he jumped, it was whether he survived. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in its history. Hundreds of agents searched forests, rivers, mountains, and remote wilderness. Nothing. No parachute, no body, no ransom money, no trace of Cooper. Years passed. The case grew colder. Then came a shocking discovery. In 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging along the Columbia River. He uncovered 3 bundles of cash buried in the sand. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money, nearly $6,000. It was the first physical evidence ever recovered, and it created even more questions. How did the money get there? Did Cooper die shortly after jumping? Did floodwaters carry the cash downstream? Or was the money deliberately planted? To this day, no definitive answer exists. Meanwhile, investigators examined Cooper's tie. Decades later, advances in forensic science revealed microscopic particles. Some researchers suggested the particles indicated Cooper may have worked in aerospace or engineering environments. Others disagreed. The evidence was intriguing, but inconclusive. And then there were the suspects. Over the years, hundreds of names surfaced. Some appeared promising. Most quickly fell apart. One of the most famous suspects was Richard Floyd McCoy, a former Army helicopter pilot and experienced parachutist. Just months after the Cooper hijacking, McCoy carried out a remarkably similar crime, yet physical descriptions didn't match perfectly. The FBI eventually ruled him out. Another suspect was Kenneth Christensen, a former paratrooper who worked for Northwest Airlines. Some investigators believed he possessed the skills and knowledge necessary for the hijacking. But again, proof remained elusive. Then came Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam veteran with military training and a complicated criminal history. Many independent investigators believed Rackstraw was Cooper, yet authorities never found enough evidence to make the case. Every suspect seemed to answer some questions while creating new ones. And perhaps that's why the mystery survives. No theory explains everything. Some experts believe Cooper died during the jump. The weather was terrible, the terrain unforgiving. The parachute selection may not have been ideal. Survival would have been extraordinarily difficult. Others argue the opposite. Cooper appeared prepared, calm, knowledgeable, methodical, exactly the kind of person capable of planning an escape. If he survived, he may have quietly lived out the rest of his life under another identity, never telling anyone, taking the truth to his grave. But which theory is correct? That's the question that still haunts investigators today. In 2016, after decades of investigation, the FBI officially suspended active efforts on the D.B. Cooper case. The mystery remains unsolved. A businessman boards a plane, demands a ransom, jumps into a storm, and disappears forever. No confirmed identity, no confession, no arrest, just questions. And one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Was D.B. Cooper a brilliant criminal mastermind, a lucky survivor, or a man whose remains are still hidden somewhere in the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest? Perhaps we'll never know. But somewhere, buried within the evidence, the answer may still exist. And maybe one day, someone will finally uncover it. If you enjoyed this investigation, make sure to subscribe to LastKnown for more true crime mysteries, unsolved disappearances, and cases that continue to puzzle investigators decades later. Leave a comment below with your theory. Did D.B. Cooper survive, or did he vanish forever into the storm? Until next time, stay curious and keep searching for the truth.